Setting up your webinar for Facebook Live.
We are live.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Hello, everybody.
Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to this interview with Dr. Terrie Hope.
Hey there.
Welcome, Terrie. And we are so pleased that you said yes to this Facebook Live with the work group Benelux for Access.
Fantastic.
Yes, it's such an invitation to have you with us. For everybody who has never seen Terrie alive, who has never heard of her, Terrie is the person behind the initial access bars research, and you're probably better off telling them yourself because you have all the exact names you have in the neurology field. So I'll let you do that part of the introduction, and then we'll continue with the questions.
Fantastic. So I studied. I did my PhD, and I have a doctorate in natural medicine, and I have this craving and love for neuroscience. So I've spent a lot of time in the neuroscience world doing research for other people and my own. And the first piece of research that was published on access bars was done in 2017 on access bars and the effects on anxiety and depression.
I've heard about it. I don't know if everybody has. Can you give us a brief synopsis of what that meant? Access bars and depression and anxiety.
Well, the study was really interesting, and I didn't see the results till the very end when I was writing it up. So it wasn't like I went forward and went, oh, I wonder what this will prove. It was more like, oh, I wonder if it has any effect. So the title is The Effects of Access Bars on Anxiety and Depression. And the goal was to see if it did have an effect and if it changes brainwave patterns. And the results were stunning. And when I say, even when I think about it now, it gives me goosebumps because there was like an 84.7% drop in the numerical values for people who had anxiety and an 82.7% for depression. And all of them had long-term standing, lifelong anxiety. That was part of the study too, was to look at it was, short-term anxiety or long-term anxiety. And in this case, it was all like lifelong anxiety, and the changes were like outrageous. So that was really fun. And we found that it changes your brain in a way that actually allows you to think and get more communication across brain regions. So from that perspective, it's not only the anecdotal personal experience of what it changed, but also physically changed things so that there was more connectivity in the brain.
Yeah, because you did this research. It was like a two-part thing, wasn't it? People filled in a questionnaire about their subjective feelings on how they perceive their life, questions that psychologists, psychiatrists may use to evaluate how much of, if this person has a depression or not. If I get it correct. And on top of that, so you had them fill in that questionnaire before and after receiving the session. And on top of that, after this subjective indication of, hey, this did me good, you measured their brains before and after.
Yeah,
so you look
that's right.
You could actually see something that is not something that you can, as a person, influence.
Yeah, that's what actually made it a really interesting piece of research, which I think is one of the reasons that the methods were one of the reasons that it was published by a peer-reviewed journal, is that I used 4 different subjective measurements like questionnaires, and then I used an EEG wireless system and measured brainwave patterns in the normal way you would do it if you were, picking up information for research. and did it before and after. And all of the people had some level of dysregulation or lack of communication in their brain before we started. And what was really interesting about it is that in the post-test results and looking at brainwave patterns where people had a significant amount of dysregulation, actually was almost normal. In some cases, normal. After one, and the session that I did for this research was 90 minutes. So in 90 minutes, it changed their brains significantly. So it went from lacking in communication to full communication. And that, if you use some standard kind of methods that they would use, sometimes neurofeedback is used, which is where they connect you to this computer and you go for a lot of sessions. So it would normally take about 80 sessions of that to do what happened in one Access Bars session to change the amount of dysregulation that was there.
It's off the charts. It's just beyond words, really, to grasp this. I mean, first of all, more than 80% improvement is like, wow. And especially if you can achieve this within, this was a 90-minute session. And I would say that probably if the session is say only 1 hour, it will still have an enormous effect. And so then if you listen to this, then for me, there's loads of more questions coming up, like, okay, how could you expand on this? How long does one session last? How often would you need to go and get your bars run? Except for, it just being extremely nourishing if you can just receive a bar session. So what are your ideas about that? What are your thoughts?
Well, from a personal experience, I would say that if anybody could have their bars run, I've heard of fantastic people receiving fantastic experiences, even 20 minutes, a 20-minute session has changed people dramatically. And there's been some work done in the military where they've been doing sort of scheduled sort of contribution sessions, and they've been 20 minutes long, and people are experiencing some really amazing changes. So even a short session has shown to be really demonstrate something that creates some change for the person, and no matter what that is.
Wow. Yes, and the other thing is, I mean, for someone to get a bars session, it doesn't mean that you need to be depressed or have anxiety or have been in the military and have seen the most terrible things in the world. It will actually help you or contribute to your general being if you are just, quote unquote, a normal person.
Normal. Well, and so funny, because when I was introduced to Access Bars, it was quite a number of years ago, and I was at a health fair, and they were demonstrating Access Bars, and my friend talked me into going and trying out a session, which I was sort of like, I don't do sessions at these things, but I did. And I was only on the table for less than 30 minutes, and I was already a pretty happy person, like zooming along in life. And I got off the table and went, holy simoleons, what was that about? Because I felt happier than I probably had felt maybe since I was 1 or beyond. Like I was so happy. And I went, I was already happy. And this brought a whole new level of happiness, and it didn't go away. Like from that moment, it was like such a space, an opening, like such a joy to be living. It was fantastic, which sort of got me on the track of doing research about it.
Yeah, what is this? Is it a drug?
Yeah. What just happened there? And I don't even know what this thing is.
No. And for those people who are actually watching this interview and do not know what Access Bars is this, if you put it in say maybe normal language, you could probably call it a head massage. You lie on a table and somebody holds your head very gently on specific points, 32 of them in total, and you just lie there and relax, and yeah, and see what happens. So it is, you don't have to take any pills. You don't, there is no medication. There is no power shocks like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or, you know, there is no physical harm that can be done to the body. You're just lying there and somebody is gently holding your head, and that's it. And that nobody is cracking your bones, or there is nothing other than just relaxing and lying there.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the beauty of like energy processes or things that are like that, because some of them can be hugely beneficial and change so many things so quickly. I mean, it's crazy.
Yes, totally.
Or not.
Absolutely. And now we've been speaking about this very often, and we've had long conversations about what research can contribute to bars, to the medical world, to bars becoming like a go-to thing for people. If they feel like, okay, I would like to relax, and today I'm doing some meditation, and tomorrow I'm going to get my bars run, and the day after I might do some yoga, or, you know, what have you. For what would it, the question we usually had was like, what would it take for access bars to be on the standard menu of wherever you go? And so one of the things we spoke about is, okay, how can we expand on this? How can we, I mean, if you do one bit of research, is one bit of research, and people will always criticize it because it's only one. And so how can we have more people experience the effects of a bar session, and let this information, their feedback, flow back to one central point, so we can start using that. And that's where you have actually created something I think is extremely fascinating, as a follow-up research from the previous one. And so I'm going to invite you to talk about this, because this one would be for people, not just people who are depressed or have anxiety, but you told me it's for everybody who is just stressed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm actually doing about 3 or 4 studies right now, but the one that you're referring to, which is a global project, and it's in 9 languages, and it looks at access bars in stress, anxiety, and depression, which means you could have one or all of them, but you have to have at least one. So most people in their lives have moments or days where, or maybe hopefully only days, where they're stressed. And it's an invitation to allow people to have an access bar session and contribute to research. So you don't have to have anxiety and depression. You could have stress going on in your life. And most people I know have a little stress, at least, going on. And so the idea is to look at access bars in everyday practice. So not in necessarily a research-driven environment, which is a very controlled environment, although this research is quite controlled, or I don't know, control. And the research allows bars practitioners and bars facilitators to, in their practice, allow people to come and receive a bar session and contribute to the research at the same time by filling out questionnaires that it's an online questionnaire.
Yeah. So it's all there. And so the idea is that you, as a bars practitioner, you don't have to be a facilitator, you can just be a bars practitioner, and you invite people. You could actually even make it into a marketing thing where you boost your own business by inviting people with this information. And you invite them, you ask them if they want to contribute to this research, fill out the questionnaire, and show it to them. They can fill the questions out on the computer. Then they move on to your table, enjoy their bar session. And after their bar session, they fill out the questionnaire and the second questionnaire.
Yeah, and the cool way that it's been set up is that everything is completely private. So the bars practitioner does not see the results that you're putting in. No person other than me ever sees the answers except as a piece of information. And there's no name attached to the data, like the information for the questionnaires that you fill out. So that means that everything is just information, and everything is done to standards that would be high research standards, if you will. And so it's completely private, which allows you to have people who want to contribute the opportunity to really be candid about how they are before and after. And yeah, it makes it easy.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
Because I believe I've heard you talk about this before. But since like in Access, we also look at the consciousness and like how do you take on research? Like what are you looking at? Because like research is often like kind of proving something. And I think I've heard you talk about like different possibility with research. I wonder, can you talk a bit about that?
So what I look at is really from what is there. And the funny thing is that scientists, what they do is they look at information and they usually have to prove something. So you need to set up something that says, this is what we're trying to prove, and we're going to do this research, and these are the parameters, and this is how you prove it. And there is so much information left out, mostly because it wasn't in the original equation of proving. So what I've been looking at is, how do we create pieces of information and research that allow more information to be included and to look at the possibilities of what really is there. So when you look at the data that I would get back, I would go, oh, I wonder what's here. And then from that, see what shows up, which is a different way than going, here, we're going to come and try to prove this, well, let's say in this case, Access bars works. Really? On what? Most scientists would say, really? On what? And then you'd have to come and do this proving thing. And I go, what if there's so much information that's there that would just go, wow, it had an effect here. Maybe more here, maybe not there. We don't know. And we know that every person in the world is individual. That's why no fingerprint is the same. That's why everyone's experience is completely different. And it's all going to show up differently when they do sessions, because everybody experiences life differently, which is, they call it qualia. So what's hot to me is not hot to you.
Right. Yeah.
And I thank you so much for that. Because like also when you are a practitioner, or when you are like a facilitator, like thank you for that information, that the research is really not about proving, but it's about wondering what different possibilities we can create actually the bars. So thank you.
Yeah. And I would invite almost anyone who likes to play in the world of research or science to maybe open it up to be different about it, to look at the possibilities that are there.
Yeah.
They totally.
Yes, this is also, wow, as in when we're talking about this, for me, I'm always looking at, okay, well, what's this going to create in the future? How many more questions can we ask when we get results back? And also, what is going to happen if you ask people to contribute to this? If you ask the people who come to your practice, what's it going to be like for them? If you ask them, hey, there's this research going on, would you like to contribute? Would you like to give us 10 minutes of your time and fill in this questionnaire? And so that we can see on a large scale what the results are, what the experiences are, and see where else we could be taking this.
Could I add like some practical questions in it? So,
Sure.
so this is like the second research that is more expanded, that in this way that everybody can like join in. So, Ingrid already gave us a very cool example of like, hey, for example, I'm offering a day of bar sessions. It's with a research. Would you like to join? Maybe give like free chasers. Does it have to be like an hour and a half? Can it be like less?
The way that this particular research is set up, because it's supposed to be in everyday practice. So not everybody that comes for an hour and a half session. So the way it's set up is that they can be 30 minutes, it could be 60 minutes, or it could be 90 minutes. And I kind of kept it within those parameters. If it was, there's sort of not room for more than that or less than that, because I had to create some parameters, because every time you add another variable, it creates a whole new data set. Yeah.
Yes,
so it's really, you could do it really fast. 30-minute sessions.
Yeah, 30-minute session. You could do a 30-minute session and have them participate in the research. And from that, if that's the amount of time that they have available, then they could. And there's another piece to this where we've created a control group. So a control group is where from a research perspective, you want to compare it to something else. So the compare group is a control group. In this case, it might be the same kind of thing where you've met somebody and they say, wow, you could be talking to them about access bars, and they say, well, that's not my thing, but I'm pretty depressed, but I just don't know what to do. And you could say, hey, do you want to come and take part in this research? All you need to do is come to my office and fill out this questionnaire, sign the consent form, fill out the questionnaire, and then go and lie on a massage table for 30 minutes or 60 minutes or 90 minutes, whatever the time period is, and then fill out the questionnaire afterwards. Now, the person could decide to have an access bar session after they did that, so they're not excluded because they're be part of the control group or this other group. Doesn't mean that they are excluded from being able to receive an access bar session. They would be invited to have one if they wanted to at that time or later, or not at all. It's their choice.
Yeah.
So there's another way that.
Can you say more? I'm not at all in the research world. So if people don't know anything like me, what is the control? Like, what's the difference?
What is a control group? Well, most in the world of research, and there's always compared to what? It's sort of like, well, this changed. Well, if the person was just hanging out, filing their nails, would that, or just relaxing, would that make the same possible change that's there? Like if they're just hanging out, would it change as much as bars? Well, if somebody was stressed, some people might say, wow, all they need to do is lie down for half an hour, and it might change as much as if you had an access bar session, which could be true. We don't know because it's never been looked at. And, we might find that people who are stressed change more with access bars or the same, depending on the person or what it is that occurs. But usually it's like just to say, here, it's faster to chop peanuts this way without a comparison to anything. Faster than what? I don't know, taking a frying pan and smashing them would be my point of view. But the idea is like to really see in this particular research if in fact it actually creates something more for people who have, let's say, by example, stress, than lying around on a massage table relaxing.
Great, thank you.
Yes. I hope that was not too confusing.
No, and if people have questions, if you're watching live, you can put them in the Netherlands in the core group so we can see that.
Yes, I also had another practical question. So I can imagine that this is like a questionnaire that you just don't hand out to everybody.
Yeah.
Are there like a few guidelines that you would like to add with this of who is eligible to have to participate in this research?
So, okay, so the part from an Access Bars practitioner perspective, is that what you're asking?
Yes, for like everybody. Like for example, I'm a bars facilitator, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to share this research on Facebook on all the Access Consciousness groups. Is that something that I can do, or do I actually really have to like engage with the participants and follow up?
The initial intention behind this was to really see how we could contribute to people in everyday practice, which would mean you're having a conversation with somebody and they say, oh my gosh, I have so much stress, I don't know what to do with myself. And then you could invite them to come and have a session with you as you would normally do in everyday practice. And the way that it is set up, that if you have somebody come in order to, I know like the word rules or regulations, but there kind of are a little bit in that there's the way that it's set up is so that everybody who is a bars practitioner is actually protecting the client's confidentiality by just giving them the iPad or the whatever device you're going to put on computer to fill out the questionnaires and the consent form, so that it's completely private. If we were to fill out the questionnaire, then every single person, it would create a whole other dynamic that probably would make it a little bit more challenging to do. And since this research is in 9 languages, that would create a lot of stuff. But the way to do the research, the instructions for it for an Access Bars practitioner is on the website, which is accessbarsresearch.com. And to the right of it, you'll see there's downloadable instructions. But I wouldn't suggest trying to take the questionnaire and copy it and hand it to people, because if from a research perspective, it's always sort of a blind thing. Like, here, I'd really like to know what you're feeling. I don't want you to examine all the questions and predetermine how you're going to answer them before you answer them. Because that's what people do. I mean, it's just sort of natural for us, right?
And we have a practitioner actually that had some questions about that. So like the questionnaire before and after, like it's the same. So how does that work in research? Like, do you ask like the same questions before or after? How does that work?
Oh, okay. So it's a score-based questionnaire. So it would be, so let's say the first question is, do you have anxiety? And it rate the level of anxiety that you have. I'm just pulling something out of my head. And you would say maybe before that you rated it a 5. And then after the session, they don't see the first set of questions that they did. So they don't know whether they rated it a 5 or not. Then they do the second part, and maybe it would be a 5 or maybe it would be a 1, which would indicate like 5 would be a high score and 1 would be a low score. So there's always you want to look for, how is it different? Is it different? And to what degree is it different? And so the way that it is set up so that you can't backtrack and see what your original score is, you have to do it from a place of where you are, sort of, I don't want to say blindly, but from a place of like, this is where you are now, without having to look back and compare it. So it's usually the same question before and the same question after to see if it changed.
Great. And we were talking about having like a Zoom for practitioners or facilitators, so that will be coming up. But there was another question, and I think it's interesting also because like some people will be on medication. How do you do that in regards to research? Like how does that work?
Well, it's a big question. In this particular research, it asks whether they're currently under medical care, but it doesn't really ask, I don't think it asks what medication they are on particularly, but we want to know if there's current medical care, because that would indicate something. And in a lot of research, there's cutoffs. So if somebody was on, like, say, more than 5 medications for depression, they wouldn't be included in the research. In most research, there's inclusion criteria for it. And in this case, I didn't create inclusion criteria or exclusion criteria because it's supposed to be everyday life. Like, we're not looking to go here. We're going to make the really difficult, challenging people who are on 4 or 5 different medications not be included because they actually really require some assistance. It's to go, oh, they can be included, and let's just see if that changes for them. And personally, in my own practice, I have access bars in my practice. And I've had people come for one session and they actually came back, I don't know, 5 or 6 months later and said, I went, oh, hey, how you doing? I haven't seen you in so long. They go, oh, my whole life changed. I went off, my medication no longer was required. I just stopped. I forgot to take it all of a sudden, and then I didn't need it anymore. And I was like, wow, that's so interesting. And they were on a lot of medication. And it wasn't that I didn't say anything, go on medication. Don't I? Here, come for a session. I'd be happy to contribute to you. And that was what was there. And from a research perspective, I was looking at designing this so that it would be really inclusive as much as possible.
Great.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, and yeah, it's really great because it's like really a different way of doing research and of looking at possibilities. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I started in the pharmaceutical industry years ago, and it's interesting because I know a lot about research design as a result of it. And, generally speaking, they want to do it for safety. And sometimes they want to create it so that from a research perspective, maybe something different than safety. So if someone was on a lot of medication, that might, and they were going to undergo some sort of method of testing, they often have big exclusion criteria. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I have a few more practical questions.
Sure. You can do practical.
I'm very curious about the 9 languages. And what is the final date to participate in this research?
October 30th is when I'm going to close the research down. So that will have given it, I actually started it, the initial phase was really started March. And that will give enough time to collect the data and start crunching it, because the research isn't done just when you finish collecting all the information. Then you have to figure out what you see.
Yes. So
right?
Yeah, that's a good message to start early, guys. If you want to join us and do this, start early. And what languages could participate?
What's that?
What languages may participate in this research?
Okay, let's see if I can do it off the top of my head. English, French, German, Italian, Portuguese,
Spanish?
Spanish, Japanese, Russian. What's the other 2 I'm missing? Let me just...
Magyar, it says. I'm not sure which one that is.
Is which?
Magyar, it says.
Oh, Hungarian.
Is that Hungarian? Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do we have them all?
What's that?
Do we have them
and
all?
English? And English, of course. Well, I would have to sort of get in there somehow because I had to start somewhere.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because I'm on a couple of research committees and nobody has ever done, to what they know, something of this scale. So it's kind of a beyond this world possibility.
Wow. How does it get any better than that?
It's cool. It's cool. And
Yes,
technically, it was quite challenging. So,
wow. Well, we're sticking with it.
So how could the research? I have a question. How could the research contribute to everyone else?
And their businesses?
And their businesses? And maybe is it other possibilities where people have never, looking at what goes on in the work world, there are so many people who, there's a big movement now in the work world where depression and anxiety or mental health, well, I'll call it mental health, but I don't mean it that way, actually is a $1 trillion is lost per year on lost productivity. And that would be through absenteeism or presenteeism, which is like how much they're engaged in the world. So the economic impact of is significant enough that it really reduces productivity. And if we can find that people's with access bars, which in the first research we found that the brain showed more connectivity and people had more energy as a result of the research. Well, that's what came out of the research. Like, how much more would that contribute to people's lives and businesses? And I go, what else could be created here that would be an invitation so that people could benefit from something like this?
And that would also bring us to another idea we've been talking about, and this is something Terrie and I've been talking about for a long time. Because if there's anybody on this Zoom looking now or watching this Zoom at a later stage, and they work in a company where absenteeism is something that is big, and if they are actually looking for a way to see if they can reduce that, then the way I got it, Terrie, is that you are more than happy to give them ideas or even set up full-scale, let's test this, let's try this, options in make it a number of weeks where people will get bar sessions or just the one bar session, and you might even include reading the brainwaves if the option is given. So if there is anybody who has like an interest in goes like, oh, that would be something that I would like to see occur and have an option to open a door there, they can contact you directly. They can contact us, obviously. If whoever's name comes up first, they can contact any of us and be the invite of the next possibility for access bars.
Yeah, and I often think that my vision, one of my visions is like, we could have a project that we want to work on, and then how can I go, wow, are there projects that are going on that we could add some components that would be research oriented to the project? Or if we created a project or we created a piece of research that would then contribute to creating a project that was a bigger project. I'm working on one right now that's really exciting on PTSD. And it is really an invitation to some really cool possibilities to help people who have PTSD. And from that, be able to share it with more people who have PTSD. And it could be in this case, it could end up contributing to an entire country based on the work that we're doing. So it doesn't have to be that you go in and think, wow, I'm working on this project and it's just that. It could be so much more, or, if it would be fun for you. But one actually works off the other. Like projects work off of research, and research can really contribute to projects.
So where do we find you? Because there were some more specific questions that I get. Maybe they could email to the email of the research straight away, so they get a clear answer. Because like this is an information Zoom where we actually just wanted to share, guys, a little bit and present Terrie for the people maybe who have heard about the research but don't know who Terrie Hope is. So if you have more specific questions, sorry for not answering those, but where can we reach out to you? So
I would say that the best one, my least full, or now maybe not so least full inbox is in this case, if it's research, send it to research@drterriehope.com. So how that works is research at, and then at.
Can you maybe put it in our chat? So I put it straight away in the online thing.
Fantastic.
And so for the people who have been playing with this, what else is possible? And like, it's great that you have some questions about it, because what can that contribute as well? Let me check. We're just waiting for the email, and then we'll put that in there. Because there are like all mixed kind of people, I think, watching this later.
There you go.
That aren't even facilitators. So I will put this in the.
And I know that there are a lot of questions, because what would seem, since I've done a fair number of studies now, it seems simplistic to me, and maybe could share more information with anybody that would like to contribute.
And they will also find this information in the Ning, right?
Yeah, in the Access Bars Ning, I think all the links are there. There's a video that was done. There's the instructions in every single language. Yeah. There's so many ways that you can do it. But basically, if you go to the website and then you go to the instructions on the right-hand side, it should be pretty easy, simple. I tried to anyway.
Yes, thanks. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very cool.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? I just thought of something. Because it's bars and everyday practice, your bar sessions don't have to be, like if somebody is a bars practitioner and they go, I want to really get paid for my bar sessions, I don't really have the time to contribute to research and do it for free, you can, in the way it is set up, because it's bars and everyday practice, there is space for you to charge people what you want to charge them. You may want to give them a discount if you want to, or not, or you can do it for whatever amount of money you choose. It could be for nothing, just because you want to contribute to research. But it doesn't mean by doing the research that you need to give away sessions. You can choose whatever you choose about, financial contribution to you or not.
Yeah.
I
actually really believe it's like how do you say this? It's like a nice, soft, gentle manipulation for people who are like a little bit on the fence. Like, hey, there's a research. You can get your bars run for free or for like a little discount. I think it's a nice way for even like more people and other people to invite them into access the bars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's such a possibility for like everybody. And the research is just like a fun way to show people that there's other possibilities there.
Yes.
And what I really have found is that it changes things so quickly for people. So we don't really, I don't like suffering. So if I'm stressed, I have like about a 10-minute quotient of, I need to undo the stress right now. But it doesn't mean we have to suffer. Like that's what I look at as from my point of view.
So this research is not for people that like to suffer and take the long road.
Or they could be part of the control group and then choose.
There's always something.
and it's just really an invitation. really an invitation.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Terrie.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I really hope that we've been able to inspire some people about looking into the questionnaires, seeing if adding this to the things that they're offering, if that would expand for them, and if they can ask people, then people can always say no. You know, you're still going to live and get their bars run. And yeah, basically the only thing that people need to have is stress. And we're not talking about long-term stress here. We're just talking about, okay, so this week, did you have, did something happen with the children or with your parents or with your family at your work, wherever? Anything that caused stress for you, a stressful situation that may have been long gone, but we're just talking short period where people sort of reflect to, okay, yes, there was stress this week. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna fit in the research and gonna get my bars run and see what the world looks like afterwards.
Wow.
Well, and what most people know is they know when they are stressed. It's not, well, that may not be true. Because we get used to it until we have another thing like an access bars session, and all of a sudden we go, oh, I don't know what that was before, but all of a sudden I feel so different. And maybe they had cumulative stress or anxiety or something like that, because what we do is we build tolerance levels to things because we're so good at coping with stuff. And we may not know, but it could be that they afterwards go, oh my God, I feel so different.
Great. Good. So for the bars facilitators and people that have a name, they can find the information there. If people have more questions, they can find us or you.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to share, Terrie, for today?
No, I just really invite you to enjoy life and do bars.
Duh.
On that note,
we're all going to get our bars run right now.
Exactly. And really, I would really invite you to, like, anything I could do to contribute to your research, to research in general, to this research, the one that's going now. Yeah, please, come and have fun. Play.
Yes, definitely. And so, yes, I really, really hope that people are going to see this invite and say, okay, let's have a look. What is it like? What are the questions like? Does it make sense? It probably doesn't. And what does it matter? It's just a questionnaire, and there is a scientific view behind this. So why don't you just try it and see let's see what the end result's going to show us. What insights we can gain with this, and how many people, by just taking this bar session because they hear that it might be good for stress or depression or anxiety, for how many people can we change their lives by just asking them if they would want to join us and want to join the research.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
that's awesome.
Thank you so much, Terrie, for being here with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I really look forward to contributing to the future and what we could create.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you everyone for watching. How does it get any better? Bye.
Bye.